Bride spots groom's mistress among guests. Her unexpected revenge changed the entire wedding. Hi viewers, welcome back to Storytime with Mr. Taylor, where we share stories that touch your heart and maybe even change how you see the world. Before we begin today's incredible story, I want you to do something for me. Drop a comment below telling me about a time someone betrayed your trust. How did you handle it? Did you walk away quietly, or did you fight back? I'm praying that each of you finds the strength to recognize your worth and the courage to demand the respect you deserve. This story is for everyone who's ever been lied to, cheated on, or made to feel like they weren't enough. You are enough. You always were. Now let's get into a story that'll have you questioning everything you thought you knew about revenge, justice, and love. The bride stood at the altar in her $8,000 gown, watching the woman her fiancé had been sleeping with take a seat in the third row. Natalie wore red, blood red, and smiled directly at Lydia as if daring her to say something. But Lydia didn't run, didn't cry, didn't even flinch, because for the past 3 weeks, she'd been planning something that would destroy them both. Have you ever discovered betrayal at the worst possible moment? That gut punch feeling when you realize the person you trust most has been lying? When everyone's watching and you have to decide, expose the truth or protect your dignity? This bride faced that choice with 200 guests watching. Think about it. You're standing there in front of family, friends, everyone who matters to you, your whole future planned out. The flowers are perfect, the music is playing. Your dress cost more than some people's cars, and right there, bold as brass, sits the woman who's been sleeping with your man. She's not hiding. She's not ashamed. She's wearing red like she's proud of it. What would you do? Would you pretend you don't see her? Would you run out crying? Or would you do what Lydia did? Would you walk away quietly? Or would you burn it all down? Stay with me. Because what Lydia did next changed everything. This isn't just about catching a cheater. This is about a woman who turned the worst day of her life into the best revenge anyone in Charleston had ever seen. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see how far someone will go when love turns to revenge. Let me take you back 3 hours earlier, when Lydia was still just a nervous bride getting ready for her perfect day. She found the text messages while looking for her wedding vows in Daniel's jacket. 37 messages that proved her worst fears were just the beginning. The bridal suite overlooked Charleston Harbor, morning light streaming through lace curtains onto the chaos of makeup brushes, champagne glasses, and white satin shoes. Lydia's hand stayed steady as she held Daniel's phone, even though her world was falling apart with every word she read. "Can't wait to see you tonight," one message said. "She'll never know," said another, but the one that stopped her heart. "After tomorrow, we won't have to hide anymore." Her bridesmaids laughed in the next room, talking about bouquets and reception playlists. They had no idea their friend was reading proof that her entire relationship was a lie. Lydia screenshotted everything. Every dirty message. Every photo. Every timestamp showing Daniel with Natalie while telling Lydia he was working late. His hands had traced her spine just 12 hours ago, whispering promises that were already broken. "Tomorrow, you'll be Mrs. Morrison," he'd said against her neck. "Tomorrow, everything changes." He was right about one thing. Everything would change, just not how he expected. The makeup artist called out, "Lydia, honey, time for your face." She could expose him now. Call off the wedding, save herself the humiliation. But as she looked at herself in the mirror, hair pinned up, her mother's pearl earrings catching the light, something shifted. Why should she be the one humiliated? Why should she slink away in shame when she'd done nothing wrong? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I'll be wearing red. You'll know who I am. N. Natalie." The woman was actually taunting her. Lydia's reflection smiled back at her, but it wasn't the smile of a nervous bride anymore. It was the smile of a woman who just decided to flip the script. She deleted the screenshots from Daniel's phone, sent them all to herself, then placed his phone back exactly where she'd found it. "Coming," she called to her bridesmaids, voice sweet as honey. Would you confront him immediately or wait for the perfect moment? Drop me if you'd expose him right away, or if you'd plan revenge. As her maid of honor knocked on the door announcing it was time, Lydia made a decision that would turn this wedding into something Charleston society would never forget. Every step down that aisle was calculated. 150 feet of marble floor between her and the sweetest revenge. The organ played the wedding march, but in Lydia's mind, it might as well have been a battle cry. Her father's arm felt steady under her hand, but she wasn't leaning on him for support. She was holding him back from what she was about to do. The historic Charleston church glowed with afternoon light through stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across the faces of 200 guests. But Lydia's eyes found only one face in that crowd. Natalie, third row, aisle seat, wearing a dress the color of fresh blood. Their eyes met. Natalie's lips curved into a smirk, like she'd won something. Like wearing red to another woman's wedding was some kind of power move. Like sleeping with the groom made her special instead of pathetic. Daniel stood at the altar, looking like every woman's dream in his black tuxedo. His face lit up when he saw her. That same smile that used to make her heart race. Now it made her stomach turn. He actually thought he was getting away with it. He thought he'd have his wife and his mistress, his respectability and his secrets. The way Natalie had adjusted her skirt in his building's lobby, Lydia had seen it 3 months ago. Hadn't wanted to believe what it meant. The late nights, the sudden business trips to Miami, the way he'd guard his phone like it held state secrets. All the signs she'd ignored because she'd trusted him. Her bridesmaids smiled behind her, dressed in soft pink, innocent and unaware. The groomsmen stood like soldiers, Marcus among them, Daniel's best friend and business partner, his face unreadable as he watched her approach. She reached the altar. Daniel took her hands, his touch warm and familiar, and completely fake. "You look beautiful," Daniel whispered, his voice thick with what sounded like emotion. "So does your guest in red," Lydia responded, quiet enough that only he could hear. His face went white. His hands tightened on hers. For 1 second, panic flashed in his eyes before he forced a smile. He thought she'd back down. He thought she'd protect his reputation to save her own. He thought wrong. The pastor began, "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." The moment when you realize someone's true character. Tell me yours in the comments. When the pastor asked if anyone objected, Lydia raised her own hand. She didn't object to the marriage. She objected to the lie it was built on. The pastor stopped mid-sentence, his prayer book hanging open like his mouth. The church fell silent, except for the sound of 200 people holding their breath at once. "I'm sorry, Pastor Johnson," Lydia said, taking the microphone from his frozen hand. "But there's something everyone needs to know before we continue." Daniel grabbed for her wrist. "Lydia, what are you—" She pulled away from him, smooth as silk, and faced the congregation. Her mother sat in the front row, hand over her heart. Her father half stood, ready to intervene. But Lydia wasn't looking at them. "Natalie," she called out, voice clear as a bell. "The woman in the red dress. Would you mind standing up and introducing yourself properly?" Gasps rolled through the congregation like dominoes falling. Every head turned to stare at Natalie, who'd gone from smirking to stone-faced in 2 seconds flat. "No." "Let me help you then." Lydia's voice stayed steady, almost friendly. "Everyone, this is Natalie Rodriguez. She works in marketing at Daniel's company. She's also been sleeping with my fiancé for the past 8 months." Daniel's groomsman stepped back like his betrayal might be contagious. His mother let out a sound between a gasp and a sob. But Lydia wasn't done. "I found out this morning. 37 text messages, some of them quite explicit. Would you like me to read them, Daniel? The one about what you wanted to do to her in the conference room was particularly creative." "Lydia, please." Daniel's perfect composure cracked like cheap paint. "Oh, and Natalie's lipstick on your collar last month? The same shade she's wearing today. Dior Rouge number 999. You told me it was from your secretary's birthday hug. But your secretary is a 60-year-old man named Harold." Natalie finally stood, chin raised like she still had dignity to protect. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No," Lydia said, turning to face her fully. "I'm embarrassing you. There's a difference. See, I invited you myself. Sent you that invitation 2 weeks ago. Every wedding needs something borrowed. Apparently, that includes the groom. The church erupted. People pulled out phones, recording everything. Daniel's mother was crying. The pastor looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Justice or cruelty? Where's the line? Let me know your verdict below. But Lydia wasn't finished. She had one more surprise that would leave everyone, including Natalie, speechless. Natalie thought she was the only secret, until Lydia revealed the other women. Before you sit down, Natalie, Lydia said, her voice cutting through the chaos. You should know something. You're not special. You're not even exclusive. She pulled out her phone, connected it to the church's presentation system with 3 quick taps. The screen behind the altar, usually reserved for hymn lyrics and Bible verses, lit up with screenshot after screenshot of Daniel's dating profiles. Ashley from Tinder, would you mind standing? A blonde in the 5th row slowly rose, face burning red. Jessica from Bumble? A brunette near the back stood. And Monica from Hinge? A redhead by the side door got to her feet. Natalie's face went from defiant to destroyed in seconds. She'd thought she was the other woman. Turns out she was just another woman. 4 women, Daniel? Lydia asked, turning back to her former fiancé. Though honestly, these are just the ones who showed up today. Tell them what you said you wanted to do to Ashley in Miami last month. Or should I read it myself? Daniel's carefully built image shattered like a dropped mirror. The successful entrepreneur, the loving fiancé, the good Southern gentleman. All of it crumbled as everyone watched. His own groomsmen had backed away, leaving him alone at the altar like an island of shame. The bridesmaids had their phones out, recording everything. Someone's grandmother shouted, "Lord have mercy," from the back. The wedding photographer kept shooting, probably getting the most dramatic photos of his career. You played me, Natalie said, but she wasn't talking to Lydia. She was staring at Daniel with murder in her eyes. You said you loved me. You said you were leaving her. He said that to all of you, Lydia announced. I have the receipts, literally. Same restaurant, same table, same lines. He's nothing if not consistent. Daniel finally found his voice. This is insane. You're destroying everything over some mistakes. Mistakes? Lydia laughed, but there was no humor in it. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This is a pattern. This is who you are. Plot twist. Did you see that coming? What would you do if you were Natalie? As security moved to escort Daniel out, Lydia announced she had one final wedding gift for Natalie. Sometimes the best revenge comes from joining forces with your enemy's enemy. Natalie, wait, Lydia called out as security approached. Before you leave, everyone should know the truth, all of it. She held up her phone, showing a text conversation. 2 weeks ago, after I found out about the affair, I reached out to Natalie, told her everything I'd discovered. And you know what? She had no idea about the other women either. The congregation watched like they were at the world's most dramatic tennis match, heads swiveling between the 2 women. We've been texting ever since, Lydia continued. Comparing notes, sharing evidence, planning this moment. Natalie stepped forward, pulling off her red jacket. Underneath, a small wire ran along her dress. I've been recording everything for the past 2 weeks. Every conversation with Daniel. Every lie he told. The crowd gasped again. They'd been gasping so much. Some people were getting lightheaded. Last night, Lydia said, her voice dropping to a more intimate register, when Daniel thought he was claiming his bride, I was gathering my evidence. He told me things in bed he'd never say otherwise. How he was planning to keep seeing Natalie after the wedding. How he had a separate bank account I didn't know about. How he thought I was sweet but boring and needed some excitement in his life. And this morning, Natalie added, he texted me saying tonight would be special, that he'd sneak out from his own reception to meet me. The 2 women stood side by side now. Former rivals turned allies. The bride in white and the mistress in red, united against the man who'd played them both. But here's the thing, Lydia said, looking directly at Daniel. The FBI doesn't care about affairs. They do care about something else you've been hiding. The church doors opened. 3 people in dark suits walked in, badges visible. "What the hell is this?" Daniel's voice cracked like a teenager's. "This?" Lydia smiled, and it was sharp as a blade. "This is what happens when you mess with the wrong women." Turns out, when we started comparing notes, we found more than just romantic lies. Plot within a plot. Who else didn't see this coming? Comment your reaction. The FBI wasn't there for the affair. Daniel's business dealings were about to destroy more than just his wedding day. The affairs were just the surface. Underneath was fraud that reached into millions. "Mr. Daniel Morrison," the lead FBI agent announced, his badge catching the church lights. "You're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and money laundering through Morrison Tech Industries." The wedding guests weren't just family and friends anymore. They were witnesses to a federal crime bust. Some of them were victims too. Lydia had made sure to invite every investor Daniel had stolen from. "When I started digging into his affair," Lydia explained to the stunned crowd, "I found more than just lipstick and love notes. I found fake invoices, offshore accounts, $3 million missing from his company's development fund." Daniel's face went from pale to gray. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Lydia cut him off. "You stole from your own employees' retirement funds. You took money meant for the children's hospital project. You bought this ring." She pulled off her engagement ring slowly, deliberately, with money that belonged to other people. "This diamond was bought with stolen money, like everything else about you." The federal agents moved in, professional and efficient. One of them nodded at Lydia with something like respect. She'd been working with them for 2 weeks, feeding them everything she'd found. The affair had been the key that unlocked everything else. Once she had access to his phone, his emails, his hidden files, the whole house of cards came tumbling down. "Mr. Richardson," the agent called out, and one of the wedding guests stood up. "Mr. Chen, Ms. Williams." More guests rose, all investors who'd lost money to Daniel's schemes. "You'll all be contacted about restitution proceedings." Daniel's mother was sobbing now, his father stone-faced with shame. The Morrison name, one of Charleston's oldest and proudest, was ruined in a single afternoon. "You destroyed me," Daniel snarled at Lydia as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "No," she said, calm as morning coffee. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone could see it." The agents led him past the altar, past the flowers, past the life he'd built on lies. Wedding flowers framing a crime scene. It was almost poetic. From wedding to FBI raid. Have you ever seen karma work this fast? As Daniel was led away in handcuffs, Lydia had one more announcement that would change everything. The reception was paid for, so Lydia decided to throw a different kind of party. "Everyone's invited to the Harbor Club," Lydia announced, still in her wedding dress but wearing it like armor now. "The food's paid for, the bar's open, and we're celebrating something better than a marriage built on lies. We're celebrating truth." The reception hall had been transformed in an hour. The Mr. and Mrs. Morrison signs were gone. The wedding cake had been wheeled away. Instead, banners reading "Freedom" and "New Beginnings" hung from the ceiling. The DJ was playing "Truth Hurts" by Lizzo when everyone walked in. Lydia took the microphone as champagne was passed around. 200 people who'd come for a wedding were about to witness something else entirely. "I need to tell you all something," she began, and the room went quiet. "I'm pregnant." Gasps again. These people were getting their cardio in today. 8 weeks along, she continued. "And before anyone does the math, no, it's not Daniel's." The crowd buzzed with whispers. Her mother looked ready to faint. Her father's jaw was somewhere near the floor. While Daniel was sneaking around with Natalie and 3 other women, I found someone who actually saw me. Someone who held me while I cried. Someone who helped me find my strength when I thought I had none left. She paused, letting the tension build. The room was so quiet you could hear champagne bubbles popping. While Daniel was with Natalie, I found someone who actually saw me. Not as a trophy, not as something to own, but as a person, a partner, an equal. Natalie raised her glass from across the room, a smile on her face. They'd become friends through this mess, bonded by shared betrayal and mutual revenge. She knew what was coming. "The father of my child is someone you all know. Someone who was supposed to stand by Daniel today, but chose to stand for justice instead. The ultimate plot twist. Did anyone guess? What's your reaction? The ballroom doors opened. Footsteps echoed across the marble floor. Every head turned. The father of her child walked into the reception, and every jaw in Charleston dropped. Daniel's best friend and business partner had been keeping more than just bachelor party secrets. Marcus Thompson walked through that ballroom like he owned it, which technically he did now that Daniel's shares in their company were frozen by the FBI. Still wearing his groomsman tux, he walked straight to Lydia, took her hand, and kissed it in front of everyone. "Marcus?" Daniel's mother gasped. "You and Lydia?" "6 months," Marcus said, his voice steady and sure. 6 months of watching Daniel destroy the best thing that ever happened to him. 6 months of falling in love with the woman he never deserved. The crowd erupted. This was better than any reality show, better than any soap opera. This was real-life drama playing out in designer clothes and champagne flutes. "He found me crying in my car after discovering the first affair," Lydia explained, her hand in Marcus's now. "I'd driven to the office to surprise Daniel with lunch. Instead, I found him with his secretary, not Harold, the other one. Marcus saw me in the parking garage. I wanted to tell her everything right then," Marcus added. "About the other women, about the money he was stealing, about the lies. But she needed to discover it herself. She needed to be the one to bring him down." "You helped the FBI?" someone called out. "We both did," Lydia said. "Marcus had access to the financial records. I had access to Daniel's personal files. Together, we built a case that will keep him in federal prison for the next 2 decades. Their first public kiss happened right there, in front of Charleston society, in front of both their families, in front of God and everybody. Some people cheered. Some people gasped. Lydia's grandmother shouted finally from her table, "You were his best friend." Daniel's father stood up, rage in his voice. "I was," Marcus agreed, "until I realized being his friend meant enabling a criminal, until I realized staying silent made me complicit, until I met someone worth being better for. Best friend with the bride, ultimate betrayal or poetic justice. You decide." But Marcus had his own confession that would test if their love could survive its origin. He fell in love while gathering evidence, but started investigating for someone else entirely. The reception had cleared out, leaving just Lydia and Marcus in the empty church where everything had exploded hours earlier. Candles still flickered on the altar. Rose petals littered the aisle. It looked like a crime scene made of lace and promises. "There's something else," Marcus said, his voice echoing in the empty space. "Something I need to tell you before we go any further." Lydia's hand tightened in his. "After everything today, what else could there be?" "I didn't start investigating Daniel for you," he admitted. "I was hired by someone else. His ex-fiancée, Rebecca, the one before you." The words hung in the air like incense, heavy and complicated. She knew he was dirty but couldn't prove it. She hired me to dig into his business, find evidence of the affairs, the theft, everything. I was supposed to destroy him before he could hurt anyone else. "You were using me?" Lydia's voice was quiet, dangerous. "At first, maybe. For about a day. Then I met you. Really met you. Saw how you laughed at his stupid jokes even when they weren't funny. Watched you plan this perfect wedding for a man who didn't deserve to breathe the same air as you. I fell in love with you while documenting his crimes. Every text I screenshot, every email I saved, I was falling deeper. Why didn't you just tell me? Would you have believed me, his best friend suddenly warning you about him? You would have thought I was jealous, trying to break you up for my own reasons." She knew he was right. 6 months ago, she wouldn't have believed it. She'd been too in love with the idea of Daniel to see the real thing. "So, you let me find out myself. I made sure you'd find that phone. Made sure those messages would be there when you looked. But everything after that, your strength, your plan, your revenge, that was all you." She kissed him with fury and forgiveness, tasting truth for the first time. In the vestry where brides usually fix their veils, she pulled him close and let herself feel something real. Can love born from deception become real? Share your thoughts. 6 months later, Lydia would face Daniel one more time. In court, with everything on the line. She walked into court wearing white again. But this time, it meant war. The federal courthouse in Atlanta was surrounded by news vans. The Morrison scandal had become national news. Wedding Sting exposes million-dollar fraud was trending on every platform. Lydia stepped out of the car in a white power suit that cost more than most people's rent, Marcus's hand steady on her back. Inside, Daniel sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, a far cry from his Italian suits. 6 months in federal custody had aged him 10 years. His lawyer looked tired, overwhelmed by the mountain of evidence. Lydia took the stand with her baby bump just starting to show under her blazer. The prosecutor walked her through everything. The affairs, the discovery of financial crimes, her cooperation with the FBI. He thought he was untouchable, she testified, looking directly at Daniel. He thought money and charm could buy him anything. But you can't buy integrity. You can't fake respect. And you definitely can't steal $3 million and expect your fiancé not to notice. Natalie testified next, their alliance still strong. She'd become Lydia's closest friend through all this, bonded by shared betrayal and mutual survival. She detailed Daniel's promises, his lies, the way he'd played them all. He compartmentalized us, Natalie explained. Different women for different needs. Lydia was the respectable wife. I was the exciting mistress. The others were just entertainment. None of us were real people to him. Daniel tried to catch Lydia's eye from the defendant's table, probably thinking he could still manipulate her. She stared right through him like he was glass. Marcus's hand found hers under the gallery railing, warm and solid and real. The prosecutor presented everything: bank records, emails, text messages, recorded conversations. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, devastating. The defendant stole from investors, from his employees, from charities, the prosecutor concluded. But worse than that, he stole the trust of everyone who believed in him. Justice in the courtroom. But is it enough? What sentence would you give? The jury went to deliberate. When they came back, Daniel stood for the verdict. But then he smiled. The kind of smile that made Lydia's blood run cold. The verdict was about to be read when Daniel stood up with something no one expected. Guilty men don't usually smile when verdicts are read, unless they have one more card to play. "Your Honor," Daniel said, standing up with that same confidence he'd worn like cologne for years. "I have evidence that my supposed best friend, Marcus Thompson, was part of this whole scheme, not to expose me, but to steal my company." The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel, demanding order. Lydia's heart dropped to her stomach as Daniel's lawyer produced a tablet. "These are recorded conversations between Mr. Thompson and myself," Daniel continued, his orange jumpsuit not diminishing his smugness, "where he discusses taking over Morrison Tech once I'm out of the picture. He planned this whole thing, seducing my fiancé, setting me up, also he could steal what I built." The recordings played through the courtroom speakers. Marcus's voice, clear as day, talking about company valuations, about timing, about making sure Daniel couldn't fight back. It sounded damning. It sounded like betrayal all over again. Lydia looked at Marcus, searching his face. He sat perfectly still, his steady gaze never leaving hers. Not defensive, not panicked, just waiting. His promise echoing in her mind. "Trust me, no matter what happens." "Mr. Thompson," the judge said, "these are serious allegations. Do you have anything to say?" Marcus stood slowly, straightening his tie. "I do, Your Honor. May I approach?" He pulled out his own phone, fingers steady as he navigated to a file. "What Mr. Morrison doesn't know is that every conversation we had was being recorded by 2 devices, his and mine. But mine caught what happened before and after his selective edits." The full recording played. Daniel talking about hiding money, about keeping the girls in line, about how Marcus needed to help him, or he'd destroy him too. Marcus pushing back, trying to get Daniel to come clean. Daniel threatening to ruin Marcus's career if he didn't play along. "I wore a wire for 3 months," Marcus said simply. "Not for the FBI initially, but for my own protection. Daniel had been threatening me since I found out about his theft. I needed insurance." Plot twist in the courtroom. Is Marcus guilty too? What's your verdict? The judge's decision would either free them all or destroy both couples. Marcus had been wearing a wire too, but not for the FBI. "Your Honor," the federal prosecutor stood up, a folder in her hand. "Mr. Thompson has been a protected whistleblower since before his relationship with Ms. Lydia began. His immunity deal was signed 6 months ago, predating any personal involvement." She handed the documents to the judge. Official FBI paperwork, dated and sealed. Marcus had been working with them longer than anyone knew. "Mr. Thompson came to us with evidence of embezzlement," the prosecutor explained. "He'd discovered Mr. Morrison stealing from their company and from investors. When Mr. Morrison found out Marcus knew, he tried to make him an accomplice. That's when Mr. Thompson agreed to wear a wire." Daniel's face went from smug to shattered in seconds. His last card, his final manipulation, had just exploded in his face. "Every threat you made," Marcus said, looking directly at Daniel. "Every time you tried to drag me into your crimes, every attempt to make me as dirty as you, it's all recorded, hours of it." The judge reviewed the immunity agreement, the recordings, the timeline. Everything checked out. Marcus had been protecting himself and gathering evidence long before he fell in love with Lydia. "The recordings Mr. Morrison presented were edited," the judge announced. "The full recordings show attempted blackmail and coercion by the defendant. Mr. Thompson's immunity agreement stands." Daniel collapsed into his chair like someone had cut his strings. His lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but it was over. Completely, utterly over. In the hallway afterward, Lydia pressed against Marcus, feeling his heartbeat. Steady. True. Hers. "You could have told me about the immunity deal. Would you have trusted me the same way? Would you have believed my feelings were real if you knew I was already protected?" She knew he was right. She'd needed to believe they were taking the risk together, that their love was worth the danger. Finding out he'd been safe all along might have changed everything. 20 years, the bailiff announced, reading the verdict. 20 years, federal prison for Daniel Morrison. The good guys win. But wait, there's more. Can you guess what happens next? 20 years in federal prison, but Daniel's story wasn't over, and neither was Lydia's. 2 years later, Lydia stood in another church wearing white, but this time, everything was real. The chapel was smaller, intimate, filled only with people who truly mattered. No Society Pages photographers, no Charleston elite judging from the pews. Just family, real friends, and the people who'd stood by them through the scandal that had rocked the whole state. Natalie stood as maid of honor, wearing soft blue instead of blood red. They'd become best friends through everything, bonded by betrayal, strengthened by survival. She winked at Lydia as the music started. Their daughter, Emma, toddled down the aisle throwing flower petals with the determination of a tiny general. 18 months old with Marcus's eyes and Lydia's stubborn chin. The flower girl dress had cost $40 at Target, not $4,000 from a boutique. It was perfect. Marcus waited at the altar, no fancy tuxedo this time, just a simple navy suit and a smile that reached his eyes. Behind him stood his brother as best man. No complicated friendships, no hidden agendas, just family. 2 years ago, the pastor began, this woman stood in a different church and showed the world what courage looks like. Today, she stands here to show us what love looks like when it's built on truth instead of lies. They'd written their own vows. No borrowed words, no internet templates. "Marcus," Lydia said, her voice steady and sure. "You saw me at my worst and helped me find my best. You showed me that real love doesn't rescue you. It stands beside you while you rescue yourself." "Lydia," Marcus replied, "you taught me that integrity matters more than loyalty. That truth beats comfort every time. You didn't need me to save you. You needed me to see you." And I do. I see all of you, and I love every part. The kiss was different from that desperate one at the reception 2 years ago. This was calm, certain, a promise instead of a plea. That night, in their honeymoon suite overlooking the ocean, he unwrapped her dress slowly, like unveiling truth itself. Every touch was a promise, every kiss a vow that went deeper than words. She traced the scar on his shoulder from a childhood accident. He kissed the stretch marks from carrying Emma. Real bodies, real love, real life, real love after fake love. Do you believe in second chances at happiness? The doorbell rang during their reception, a messenger with documents that would change their future. Daniel's grandmother left her entire estate to the woman with courage to expose him. The lawyer stood in their reception hall, looking uncomfortable among the celebrating guests. The envelope in his hand was thick, official, marked with the Morrison family seal. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, using Lydia's new married name, "I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mrs. Eleanor Morrison's will specified this be delivered on your wedding day." Eleanor Morrison, Daniel's grandmother, the matriarch of Charleston society, who died 6 months into Daniel's prison sentence. Lydia had met her only twice, both times at stuffy family dinners where the old woman had watched everything with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Marcus stood beside her as she opened the envelope. Inside, legal documents that made her gasp. She left me everything? The harbor estate, the mansion where her first wedding was supposed to happen, $3 million in trust, investment portfolios worth another $2 million. Everything that should have gone to Daniel, all left to Lydia. "There's a letter," the lawyer said, producing another envelope. Eleanor's handwriting was old-fashioned, elegant. "My dear Lydia, I knew what my grandson was long before you exposed him. I watched him lie, cheat, and steal his way through life, protected by our family name and money. I said nothing, to my eternal shame. You did what I should have done years ago. You stood up to him. You refused to be another victim of the Morrison men and their appetites. This estate has seen too many women silenced, too many sins covered with money. I'm giving it to you because I believe you'll do something better with it. Don't let it corrupt you like it corrupted us. Use it to help other women find their voices. Use it to build something good from our rotten foundation. With respect and admiration, Eleanor Morrison." The reception had gone quiet, everyone staring. Lydia's mother was crying. Marcus's hand found hers, steady as always. $5 million, someone whispered. "The Morrison estate," another added. Lydia looked at the papers, at the number that could change everything. Security for Emma, for their future children. No more worrying about bills or college funds or medical emergencies, but also the weight of it, the responsibility. They made love that night in the garden of the estate that represented her victory, under stars that didn't care about money or revenge. Marcus's hands on her skin, her mouth on his throat, celebrating not the inheritance, but the choice that lay ahead. Would you take the money? What would you do with it? Comment below. Lydia's decision about the inheritance would affect more than just her family. It would change Charleston forever. She turned the estate where her fake wedding was supposed to happen into something that would help other women escape their own Daniels. The grand opening of Courage House brought hundreds to the same estate where Lydia was supposed to marry Daniel 3 years earlier. The mansion had been transformed. What was once a monument to old money and older secrets was now a shelter and legal aid center for women escaping abusive relationships. "This place used to represent everything wrong with power," Lydia said at the podium. Emma on her hip and her second pregnancy just starting to show. Men who thought money meant they could own people. Women who stayed silent to protect reputations. Secrets that destroyed lives. The ballroom where she would have had her first reception was now a childcare center. The bridal suite where she'd found those text messages was an office for pro bono lawyers. The garden where she'd planned to take wedding photos was a playground where children could be safe while their mothers rebuilt their lives. Natalie ran the day-to-day operations, having left marketing to get her social work degree. "We've helped 43 women in our first year of planning," she announced. "Once we officially open, we can help hundreds." Marcus's tech company had installed state-of-the-art security systems, panic buttons, safe rooms, surveillance that would make any stalker think twice. He'd also hired several of the women they'd helped, giving them jobs that paid enough to rebuild. In the crowd, Lydia spotted familiar faces. Ashley, Jessica, and Monica, the other women Daniel had played, were all there. They'd become part of the Foundation's board, turning their humiliation into purpose. "Daniel gave me a broken engagement," Lydia said, her voice carrying across the crowd. "But from those broken pieces, we built an empire of empowerment." Later, in their own home, a modest 4-bedroom in a regular neighborhood, nothing like the estate, Lydia traced Marcus's jaw in the morning light, knowing she'd chosen right. Their love wasn't built on lies or luxury. It was built on Tuesday night dinners and Saturday morning cartoons with Emma, on disagreeing about paint colors and supporting each other's dreams. "No regrets?" Marcus asked, his hand on her growing belly where their son grew. "None," she said, and meant it. On the news that night, footage of the grand opening played. In his federal prison cell, Daniel watched his family estate become everything he would have hated. The reporter mentioned him only once, in passing, as the disgraced former owner. His story had become a footnote in hers. From betrayal to triumph, what part of Lydia's journey inspired you most? Would you have played the long game or confronted immediately? Share this story with someone who needs to know their worth. If Lydia's courage inspired you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories of women who turned their pain into power. Comment below. What would you have done at that altar? Remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone, it's building something beautiful from the ashes they left behind. This story reminds us that betrayal doesn't define us, our response does. Lydia could have been just another broken bride, but she chose to become something more. If you've ever been betrayed, lied to, or made to feel small, remember this: your story isn't over. Your power isn't gone. It's waiting for you to claim it. Share this video with someone who needs to remember their strength. Subscribe for more stories that prove the best revenge is a life well lived. And always remember, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. What would you have done? Let me know below.